Hey, Ms. Osborne here, and we're back with another flip video. And today we're going to be talking about historical thinking skills, the necessary skills that historians will need to be successful. To start off, we got to look a little bit at what history actually is. There's two types of ways to think about history time periods. There's chronological thinking and historical eras. Chronological thinking is the foundation of historical reasoning, or the ability to examine relationships among historical events and explain the causes of historical events. Chronological thinking is most likely always going to be presented in timeline format. Historical eras, on the other hand, are fluid, and historians may not agree on the start and end dates of particular periods or eras in history. An example of a historical era would be the Renaissance or the Protestant Reformation. Not all historians agree on when those periods actually started. Historians are people who study history, so in this class you are going to be historians. Historians are students, teachers, professors, archaeologists, sociologists, museum curators, and everyday people who enjoy studying history. There's two main things that historians do. They think forward from the beginning of an event, a problem, or an issue through its development and anticipate some outcome, or work backward from some issue, problem, or event in order to explain its origins or development over time. They also interpret data that's presented in timelines and other sources to identify patterns of change and continuity, meaning that they look at how things have changed over time or how certain ideas continue over the course of history. But what does it mean to really think like a historian? The first things that historians are going to look at is sourcing, to find things out from a particular source. There's two different types of sources. There's primary sources and there's secondary sources. Primary sources are first-hand accounts from a certain time period or an event. Understanding primary sources require that it be read in order to reveal the humanity of the individuals and the groups who lived in the past, meaning that we're trying to understand them as humans. What were their motives? What values did they hold? What ideas did they have? What did they hope for? What were they scared of? And then what was the strengths and weaknesses? A secondary source is an account that was created by someone who did not experience firsthand or participate in the time period or event. The reliability of sources are the factors that determine whether or not a source can be trusted. You can't trust everything that you read. There's three main factors to consider when you're looking at whether or not you can trust a source: bias, background, and purpose. A person's bias means that they're showing or feeling a certain inclination or prejudice for or against someone or something, and it becomes obvious in the language that they use that they might have a bias. Background is the education or experiential knowledge of the author, whether or not they experienced the actual event or they have the education to back up their claims. The purpose is the reason that the author is writing, whether that's persuasive, informative, or technical. If it's a persuasive article, then it might be more likely that they are going to be biased because they're going to be trying to force you to think about something. Informative usually does not have any bias, and neither does technical. The second thing that historians need to do is to contextualize. Contextualization is to understand an event in the context of when it happened. That means that you're understanding what happened before, aka the past, what's happening at the event, aka the present, and then what might happen in the future as a result of this event. A question that you can ask yourself to help with contextualization is, how did the social, political, cultural, or economic world of certain individuals and groups influence their motives, values, ideas, hopes, fears, strengths, and weaknesses? For example, in ancient Egypt, the cultural ideology was that people needed to be mummified in order to make it to the afterlife. That is a cultural idea that would have promoted a belief that people needed to be mummified. The third skill is corroboration. To corroborate, that means to support an argument with evidence. Historical evidence often involves a rich variety of historical documents and artifacts that present different voices, accounts, interpretations, and perspectives on the past. In order to corroborate an argument, you're looking at all of those different historical documents and artifacts and coming together to decide what your historical argument would be, and then providing evidence from those documents. The study of history is subject to your interpretation of past events, issues, and problems for that exact reason, because you're looking at documents and artifacts and coming up with your own argument. There are often multiple causes of past events that demonstrate the importance of the individual idea, interest, and belief. And again, that can come from the documents or your own argument. All historical interpretation should be grounded in evidence, however. An interpretation is different than an opinion. An opinion is based on your feeling. That was something based on your gut or what you think, while interpretation is based on fact or evidence. The final historical thinking skill is close reading. Historians who close read provide an intensive analysis of a document in order to come to terms with what it says, how it says it, and what it means. Historical inquiry often begins with a historical question. Historical inquiry is a process that begins with questioning, then collecting and analyzing evidence, and then creating an argument based on the evidence. Without close reading, you're not going to be able to analyze the evidence that you're getting and then corroborate it. Close reading means that historians are analyzing already existing historical interpretations, asking new questions, and investigating perspectives of those who do not appear in the document. Close reading requires two different types of analysis. Quantitative analysis is the examination of measurable and verifiable data, such as earnings, revenue, and population. Quantitative analysis is usually going to be the analysis of numbers or maps. Qualitative analysis is looking at the examination of non-measurable data, such as reputation, image, feelings, beliefs, and values. Qualitative analysis is more abstract as it's looking at words and feelings and understanding a text rather than looking at numbers alone. Thank you for joining me for this flip video, and I'll see you in class.